starting the AFC East, we got to start with Buffalo. And for Buffalo, their biggest headline is, what does this team have left? And it's not just what they have left in totality, because Josh Allen is still relatively young. Josh Allen is still probably going to play in this league for another 5 to 10 years. And as long as they have Josh Allen, they are most likely going to be competitive. We all understand that. But this iteration of the Bills, with an older Von Miller, you've already seen them start to lose guys on defense. Edmonds, the linebacker, they weren't able to re-sign. Stephon Diggs, the last couple of years of him being a great receiver. Like, how long is this particular team going to be together? If they don't make a Super Bowl run, at least get there, most likely they won't even have Sean McDermott, their head coach, who's turned around the franchise. Most likely won't even have him in 3 to 4 years. So this iteration of Buffalo, with Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, Von Miller, their defense being a top 5, top 10 unit for the most part, which I think they still have potential to be even with the loss of Edmonds, is how much does this particular team still have left? I think there's arguments on both sides. I think that now, while we all believe they're probably a little too Josh Allen dependent between running and throwing, that's not necessarily a bad thing when you are best player dependent and your best player is potentially a top 5 player in football. Do you love him running with, up 14 or up 20 like they did in the season opener against the Rams last year and running into guys? No. But his A game, like, I think right now, I think most people, and I am of this consensus, that Joe Burrow has passed him in terms of who do I think is the second best quarterback post Mahomes. But Josh Allen's A-plus game is as good as anybody's A-plus game, including Mahomes. So his upside, which means this team's upside, is still as good as any team in the National Football League. So while there is potential issues down the line, both with their salary cap, because Allen's making a lot of money, Diggs makes a lot of money, plus getting older, Diggs, Miller are going to be going out of their prime, even though Josh Allen, you can make a case, is entering his prime. This iteration of the Bills is not going to be here much longer. So how much does this particular team have left? Going over to Miami. Miami has one question all year, and there's no way we're going to have an answer to it until the season is over, and that is, can Tua stay healthy? It's an impossible question to really have a discussion around because due to the nature of his injury, this is not a guy who is pulling hamstrings. This is not a guy who had one major surgery. This is not a guy who has been injury prone per se since he started playing football, despite that being a normal concern because he's a smaller quarterback. He has 2 key injuries that are both career-defining for a lot of guys. The concussion, which is the big one, had multiple last year, supposedly played during a game with a concussion. The NFL changed the rules, started getting harder on doctors, saying now, the team doctor's got to make the decision. The coach and the organization can't have any say in it. And then obviously his injury coming out of Alabama. Now, we're not going to know this answer literally until the season's over because the Dolphins could get off to a great start. They could be leading the division, leading the conference, Tua potentially looking like an MVP player. All of this stuff, besides leading the conference or leading the division, was true at last year at certain points. Tua and the Dolphins looked like potentially the best offense in the league. Tua had MVP-type moments. Tua was clearly showing that he was going to be one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. And then he got concussed. And it's just impossible to have a real conversation around this team despite having Tyreek Hill, despite having Jalen Waddle, despite bringing in Jalen Ramsey, even though he's hurt, but he'll be coming back, until we know by the time we get to week 16, week 17, do they have a chance is totally based on is Tua Tagovailoa healthy. I just totally butchered his name. My apologies, but I tried. Moving on to the Patriots. Is Belichick actually finished? I spoke last week in regards to I think Belichick is getting a really mass amount of unfair criticism. Not that the Patriots' level of play clearly has declined over the last couple years, but that's what happens when Tom Brady leaves your franchise. That's what happens when any all-time great quarterback leaves your franchise. You go from Super Bowl contender, always in the playoffs, always competitive, to not those things. Because quarterback's the most important position in sports. We're all aware of this. and the lack of the greatest quarterback and greatest player to ever play the game, you clearly have a downgrade. With that being said, though, there are other great coaches, Mike Tomlin, who have won a playoff game not even as recently as Bill has not made the playoffs as recently as Bill has, but somehow avoids the criticism, despite Bill, by all accounts, still being the best coach in NFL history and realistically not even close. The man still has 6 Super Bowl rings as New England's head coach, and if you go back to the Giants, has 7 rings. So, but there's a lot of people that think he ain't going to make it no more. There's a lot of people who think he's not going to make it to even passing Don Shula on the all-time wins list due to the fact there's some sports irony that I think a lot of people are rooting for because we all got our favorite team's ass kicked by the Patriots growing up. And due to that and the way that Bill has always kind of done the GM part of his job, which is letting guys go a year before rather than a year after, there is some sick sports irony that people are looking forward to of, does Bill get canned a year early instead of a year late? So the question for the Patriots, is Bill actually finished? And the final question is the New York Jets. And the Jets are the only team that could be on the NFL's second longest losing streak and still have momentum and feel really good about where they are going into the season. And that's obviously due to the fact of they acquired Aaron Rodgers. They went from the statistic is they had the 3 worst quarterback passer ratings last year between Joe Flacco, Mike White, and Zach Wilson. And now they get Aaron Rodgers. So obviously there's optimism. I am a fan of a team that just experienced this optimism with Russell Wilson, bringing the guy in, and it totally feeling like it could change the trajectory of your franchise. Totally valid. Totally understand it. Like, I'm not tripping here. I totally get it. But the question is Rodgers going to be Brady 2.0 with Tampa, or is he going to be Russ 2.0 with Denver? Is his coach going to be Bruce Arians and figure it out with his all-time great quarterback? Or is he going to be Nathaniel Hackett and look lost and unprepared and not ready for the job? I don't know where I fall on Robert Saleh, to be honest. There's part of me that thinks he has potential to be a really good head coach. Coming from that 49ers system, I don't think he can all be player-based. So I do think there's something there. Do I think Aaron can be a handful for a young head coach and young receivers? Absolutely. But Aaron looks the part so far that he's bought in, he believes in what the Jets are doing, and he likes the direction they're going, and that he is more committed than we've seen Aaron Rodgers the past several seasons. So with that being said, is Aaron Rodgers Brady 2.0, or is he going to be Russell Wilson 2.0?